YouTube. And yeah, so hello to the people as well who are watching, but they're not here with us live. And yeah, we of course appreciated like your positive feedback. And we one woman was saying that she felt more grounded in a certain life situation she's facing at the moment. And of course, if you're unable to join, um, do also feel free to send us any messages or anything you'd like us to like mention during the chats. You're more than welcome to do that if you want. Again, we're open to everything here. We really are.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so nice to have people all around the world. So it's such a nice way for us all to connect to one another. Not everyone will be able to join every week. That's completely fine. So even if you have friends who would like to join, don't worry if they miss the first ones. We encourage people to hop on and hop off whenever they can. So I think, yeah, I think we're ready to get started, and it's lovely to see you all again this week. And I don't know, Anne-Marie, do you want to start off this week and share some quotes?
Yeah. I could just share a kind of a few thoughts I had on the chapter in general. And then, so yeah, this chapter, I don't know if someone's saying something or they're
I think
maybe.
it's just people on not on mute. And try and mute everyone. There. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so we'll just mute people until, of course, when people want to speak, they'll be unmuted. So yeah, I think I've thought for a while. I think since I read Eckhart the first time, this whole thing of role playing has been kind of very interesting to me, and I particularly notice it. And he mentions that he has a section where he says villain, victim, lover. And I think for me, I guess as a woman in my early 30s, and like I've experienced kind of dating apps, all kinds of things related to dating. I have friends who have have all kinds of experiences. And I've often noted that like it's relationships. I don't know if it's even more so now in our modern age, but relationships, it seems to be, you meet someone on a dating app, and you like the pictures that people put on these apps of their like most perfect selves. It's kind of like consumerism in a way. And then people meet and they play these certain roles, and of course it's kind of like so I'm specifically speaking about romantic relationships. I know he talks about lots of other things, but this is just something that I observe maybe more than the other. And people meet and they want something from the other person, what ego doesn't, as Eckhart says. So yeah, like, so two very inauthentic people meet, they go on a date, and yeah, and then after a while they keep playing these roles of who they think the other person wants them to be. And then the facade has to eventually like fall away. And I know from reading, I used to read magazines and stuff, and dating advice, and it's all about playing a role. It's
Mm.
do this, don't write back too soon, do this. Um and I currently I am in a relationship, actually, and it's one thing I say about that relationship. So the person I'm in a romantic relationship with, he was my friend. This is the first time it ever happened to me, that I was friends with someone before I went into that relationship. And it was just so much nicer because we knew each other for a period of 5 months or something, and we were just genuine friends, and we saw each other as the we saw the real person. And then like when we entered a relationship, like, of course, in every relationship, there's still challenges, but there was nothing like we weren't like playing roles in the sense that a lot of people do in
Mm.
kind of the dating world. And so that was just something that I wanted to share that about that chapter.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree. What really struck me about the part that you were talking about was this idea of like the roles that women are put into as well, like the maiden mother crone, that's always in media, and it's been sort of for a very long time perpetrated. I think Eckhart mentions the seductress or something like that. And it's hard, because when you mentioned magazines there, when you're a child, or a teenager, and you're being shown these roles consistently, in society around you, you think that you need to be or should be portraying these things, and that's the norm, and I think that's what most stuck out to me about that was how difficult it is to get yourself out of those ideas of roles, because society is constantly showing you them in one way, shape, or form. Did anyone else have anything to say about that part? Yeah, Sharon, go for it. Unmute you there.
Well, I was going to say that the maiden mother crone seductress, I have kind of studied other pagan epaths also, and they mention that a lot in there. And I think when it doesn't come to other people pushing that on us, there are some valuable things to be grabbed from that, because there's importance in to me, this is just my opinion, not Eckhart's. The feminine is good, the masculine is good, and I think that not to have the old fashioned ways, because I've been in a profession that was mostly male most of my life. So I understand the things you do there, you have to, practically stand up and scream to get listened to, unlike here. But that there just, and those things have happened, but I do think there's some good things there if you dig a little deeper. That's just my opinion. Like kind of Jung's archetypes, those things.
Yep, I'd agree as well. I think especially to do with sort of reclaiming that feminine side, which, like you said, in certain I guess corporate, especially environment, being really like pushed down and sort of stamped on, and like that's not the way to be, so yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's a really
That's a spiritual thing, not a workplace thing, right? Just
yeah,
like we don't go in there and talk about our religion and preach about it because
yeah,
it's a workplace. Yes, but are you from Ireland?
yes.
Well, don't they really go by, I mean, the old Celts, if didn't they go by a lot of those things that you talked about?
Yeah,
Because there's even symbolism for it, right?
yeah, there is, yeah, and
Very interesting.
in our goddesses, but also in, so you've got like, I guess there's obviously the really strong Christian influence here as well, but like the shamrock itself is that sort of archetype,
Yes.
the crone, the Holy Spirit, the Father, the Son, etc. But back in the old ancient sort of goddesses tales, we also have what they're called like triple goddesses, and they basically have three different aspects or personalities. Like Bridget is one. So yeah, it's very prevalent, and in all the symbols, like you said, there's like a lot of the swirl, the Celtic
I
swirl.
have to read up on Bridget a little bit.
Oh, do. She is very
Thank you.
she is the goddess of beer brewing, among many other things, poetry, blacksmith, healing, very sort of strong, great feminine influence. So do definitely look up on her.
Thank you.
No problem. And what about Diana? You said you had something to say as well? Oh, you're muted there. Get you
Am
on.
I okay now?
Yes,
Am I
perfect.
good?
Yeah.
I said I can talk out loud because my husband went to go get his hair cut and he's not here. But I haven't been married for over 40 years. that it doesn't stop. It doesn't matter how spiritual you are, how awakened you are, that the role playing just doesn't stop. It just shifts this way or that way. It's just a matter of catching yourself, really,
Mhm.
and learning from that. And I wanted to share this because I think it's so important that I was talking to a friend last week and I was telling her how much I was enjoying our sessions here.
That's lovely.
And yes, and I was saying how much it roots it in being. And she asked me, "Oh, is everything going okay?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm married. There's someone else in my house."
Mm, mm,
I says, and I root myself in being every day. It's just something that I do, no matter if it's fabulous or just a challenge I'm stepping up to.
mm.
But I really wanted to share this with you is when I went to go and see Eckhart Tolle 6 years ago, him and Kim Ing spoke. And Kim Ing shared a lot. At that time, I think her and Eckhart, I don't know how long they had been together, 18 years or something like that. And she disclosed that her and Eckhart live in separate apartments in the same condominium.
Interesting.
And how normal is that, right?
Mhm.
So, she didn't disclose why, but do we really even need to know why? Because there is a reason, and she says when they travel, they stay in separate, in the same hotel, but in separate hotel rooms. And they have a cottage on Vancouver Island, but they have two cottages on the same island because they need separateness. And she had discussed, she said that she goes, I don't know how it started, she says, but maybe because I'm Asian and he's Eastern European and he was expecting me to do this and that, and this. So my whole point of all this is just how normal every single one of us here are.
Mm,
It doesn't matter what kind of enlightened being you are. We are in our humanness, or in our beingness is our humanness. We are one of the same.
yeah.
And these challenges come up all the time, and these little role playing things, and new things come up. Even after 40 years of marriage, it comes up. It's just a matter of being so rooted in being that you become aware of that in the moment, and that's a game changer right there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting as well to know that they had those struggles, that everyone has those struggles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all on the same path.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Does anyone else want to add to that conversation? Or yeah,
We just had our 41st anniversary.
oh, so fantastic.
Yeah, they're a little bit longer. And exactly, it's I talked about separate bedrooms from snoring, but a different house would be interesting. No, that's one of the biggest challenges. You're right, Diana. That was what I got from this chapter as well. Just, how is that relationship on a constant basis, and how do I respond? How's he responding? Very interesting to be paying attention a little bit better.
Yes.
I
Definitely.
think I got a long way to go though.
Don't worry, we're all on the
We
same.
all do.
We're all trying. Yeah.
That's right. It's endless. It unfolds on it's an endless unfolding. It really is. And I know, and I bring comfort to myself knowing that it will never stop until I am no longer in this body. I am forever a student of myself.
That's it. Yeah, definitely. And something else that stuck out to me in this chapter was the idea of, okay, when you strip away the roles or when people are going through turbulent times, I guess I've had this happen with quite a few people that I know where they've said the thing of, I don't know who I am anymore. And Eckhart goes on about, he's congratulating people who are in that space. And I think that is such a foreign concept to most people. When they're in that space, they usually are feeling very much like they're suffering and very much like they're lost. And I've had quite a few people say that to me in the last while. And I just thought that that was really interesting way to flip that and to use that as a real opportunity of getting back to your real self and your true self, and not being bogged down by all these roles and all these ideas and all these thoughts. And speaking personally, you know, I think like our society is so like goal orientated, and so towards like career and gaining your identity out of those things, and it's like the next thing you get is going to be the thing that you know makes you happy, makes you peaceful, which he talks about as well in the chapter. But to be in the state where you don't know what you're doing, where you're going, what the next step is, it feels so at odds with society, and so like a punishment, but is actually in fact such a great opportunity to find that peace. And I wish, you know, when I'd been feeling like that years ago, that I had that sort of attitude, or I knew about that, or could reframe it that way. And I think it was just really beautifully done. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that for myself, you just hit it on the head right there, is that in studying his books, it gave me the words to my feelings. You know, I felt this way for a long time, but I really didn't know how to explain it to myself. So this is what today is doing, is this putting that into a study so we can figure it all out and move forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And has anyone else got any experiences along those lines? Yep, Sharon. Oh, let's unmute you. You're on mute there.
There we go.
There we go.
When I was a young child, I'll say 5, 6, 7 to 9, I was really super shy. And I had to figure out a way to get out of that, because I realized that I wasn't making as friends as well. I wasn't, you know, I just felt like I wasn't living the fullest that some other kids were. I had a few people that I you know, were friends with. So I realized that I had to kind of put on a mask to hide myself so that I could be brave enough to speak to people that I didn't know and train myself to do this. And then over the years, it got easier and easier. But then I found out that, like, when I got comfortable at my workplace, I didn't have to do that. But of course, going in at first, it's always a little odd, but it shouldn't be, right? Because you should just be your authentic self. But I was so used to doing that when I needed to, that there was easily that mask that I could slip on at any time. And it was just protecting myself and making sure that I made a good impression.
Yeah.
And so now I don't feel like that as much. I still want to get along just as much with everyone and let everybody have their own ideas just as much as I always did. But I don't feel like I have to answer every question, and I don't feel like I have to put that mask on as much.
Yeah.
And reading Eckhart really helped me with that, because that can go on for a long time, and I was not awake to it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's something, actually, I was discussing it with Martin earlier, who's on the call, about putting on this sort of face with people and feeling like you have to be the life and soul of the party, you have to be speaking, you have to, and something I've been learning, I guess, the last year has been actually like, don't have to say anything if I don't want to. And I think that's really powerful, because you kind of have it in your head. It ties back to that sort of productivity and the idea that you need to be extroverted, but to actually just say, no, actually, I don't want to say anything like right now. I'm not going to force myself to say something. That's something I've been learning in the last year, and not like usually when I wouldn't say something, then I'd feel sort of bad. I'd be like, oh no, I should have said something, or I should have spoken up, or I should have contributed to that meeting, or like, and just being like, no, actually, like I didn't have anything that I particularly wanted to share. So rather than forcing myself to do it. Does anyone else want to share anything there?
Well, it's kind of similar, but it's also like a different part of the chapter. I liked the one, and I kind of associate as well a bit with this. So there's the story of the monk with the sweaty palms,
Mm,
and I don't know. I think like for me as a person, like I think I've always kind of I don't really know how to put it, but like I've never been fazed by like people who are like more wealthy than me, or or like well, less wealthy than me, or higher or lower, right? Like maybe if I met like, I don't know, Obama, I would start shaking or something. I have no idea. But anyway, I just like I remember like I worked in one or specific organization, and like it was very hierarchical, and like I really didn't feel that I like fit in there. Like the people who were like the bosses in within each agency, like there was like and I'm sure like I'm sure they were like nice in certain ways, but there was this whole kind of like hierarchical thing, like like I'm the boss here. I'm like I'm better than you. Like that was a sense I got. And okay, maybe I misread it, but I think like I got the general feeling other people kind of felt the same. Like it was a very hierarchical place to work. And I really like I don't like I really like but I was still myself, and I don't think I fit in very well in that place. Like I was still just myself. And I think in today's society, again, like there are some great changes, and we have challenges in today's society, but there are like also good things. I think things are less like, I guess, like 50 years ago, like or like 100 years ago, if you were like the rich man on the estate, like you were like God, and everyone else was like peasants, and like everyone really identified with that. So yeah, I get along. Like I most of my other jobs, apart from that one specific one I'm thinking of, like my manager is usually just someone I can have a like tea with, or just have a conversation with. And like for me, like that's very important. I think it's very I really don't like when it's the other way. And I mean, Eckhart even makes that point. I'm not a parent or anything, but he even says that about in the chapter about the child, and like that's something I kind of didn't really think about. But the way he puts it, it's like you're not. I don't know what words he uses because I'm not on it, but it's like you're not above the child. Like
yeah.
it's just like you know more, like you're more educated, but like you're the same. And in a way, like it was just very interesting the way
Yeah.
he put that.
He was talking about
I
like
like.
you're different in form, but like with
Mhm.
without form you're the same. But it's actually really interesting that you brought that up, because that is something I meant to say as well. Because my background is working in museum education. I was the head of education at a museum in Dublin for 5 years, and I used to be terrified of talking to kids when I was like in my early 20s, because I was an only child, and I think like I grew up with a lot of adults around me, and I just didn't have that experience of talking to children a lot. Even when I was younger, obviously I was at school and stuff, but it is different when you have like siblings and a lot of like interaction like that. So I think I just didn't have the experience. I was sort of scared, and I didn't know how to relate to children. And then I started working with children, and I quickly had to get over that and navigate it. And I realized very early on, I was like, oh, like you just speak to children like you speak to anyone. Obviously, like you don't say rude things, you say appropriate things to children, but you just speak to them like you speak to anyone. If they don't understand, they're going to ask you. Like you just speak, and you relate on that level of any person that you would come across. And then I started having to train people, and there's so much fear about speaking to different age groups, like teenagers, teenage boys, like how, oh, I can't handle, there's loads of people who are like, I can't handle, teaching a class of teenage boys, so they're really rowdy, I don't know how to speak to them. And most of my training was around like getting rid of that idea that like kids are different and that you should speak to them in a certain way, and trying to give people the confidence to speak to people, to speak to kids the same way they speak to anyone. So yeah, it's such an ingrained thing we have in our heads of like, you must relate to children in a different way. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to share about the chapter?
Spent some time as a
Share.
preschool teacher, but basically they taught me.
They taught you.
It's just amazing what the little 3 to 5-year-olds. Well, I'm a grandma now, and I have a couple kids of my own, and I babysat since I was 10 years old. My cousin was brand new baby the first time I was doing all that. So I've had lots of experience with little ones, and they're more profound than anything. It's like they're stripped of all the mud of the world. They're these bright little shining beings. There's so much we can learn from kids. It's just a beautiful thing. I'm watching my youngest grandgirl just turned 2, and she's not quite that. You don't get a lot. You get her perfect beingness right now. So I love to just witness how she's just in every single moment. Even the 5-year-old little grandboy, he's still there, but he comes out with observations that you just throw you on your butt and go, oh yeah, I guess I'm not as enlightened as I think I am or want to be. And they're pretty wonderful.
Yeah, that's so
if you listen to the kids.
Yeah, I think that's it as well. A lot of people don't listen.
The generation that was, you were seen and not heard. And I had grandparents who, my mother was the oldest, so I was the oldest of all the female cousins. That's all we had. And my youngest aunt was only 8 years old when I was born. The next one was 10. So my mom was a young mom. My grandma was only 36 when I was born. So they were each 18 having babies. So I was like, she is going, take care of your own kid, And so I spent a lot of time just being very quiet and observing adult behavior and, being on the fringe. So my youngest cousins that are just a couple of years older than my kids are the ones that got the grandparenting. So it's very different to be in this role now, come full circle. Yeah. I do have a question. If you guys, I don't know if you guys, I'm sorry I came in late. But one thing that I wanted to discuss today, and I know we're running out of time with this, is the ego and illness. I have lots of questions because I've been a yogi like most of my life since I was like 10, 11. And I teach teachers, all this kind of stuff, but I've been managing a diagnosis of MS, multiple sclerosis, for 25 years. So I have a lot of questions about the word heal. I don't believe dogs heal. I don't think people do. There's always a scar somewhere and you never get back to where you were. And so I look at that, and I also, with having a nervous immune system thing, even he says something in here that I'm like, okay, if you get enlightened enough, you heal your body completely. I've struggled with that throughout this journey that I've been on. And I've never considered myself a victim. I just considered it a new path, that there's people I've met, and I would have met these people, it's just, you're put on a different path. But with his comment on page 124 is that it's all ego based, and that's the only way you get sick. And I'm thinking, well, how is that? So I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that, if anybody else has dealt with something as a chronic debilitating. I mean, hey, I would love my nervous system to be fixed.
Could you reference the paragraph?
He's talking about on 124, just the second, when he says, when you're ill, your energy level is quite low and the intelligence of the organism may take over and use the remaining energy for the healing of the body. So there's not enough left for the mind. And I don't know, because I've been walking a different path. I've been on this spiritual path for most of my life. So and reading the Yoga Sutras, you know, the non-attachment, you know, I've lived that way. I try to live my on my mat, off my mat, I guess is the way I look at it, and try to be present and teach. And I just feel like it's given me so many different opportunities that I never would have had, and interactions with beautiful people and souls. And I just don't know, you know. So yeah, at the end he says, so needless to say, those people who experience a strengthening of the ego in illness take much longer to recover. So he's assuming everybody recovers what?
Yeah.
That's my question. It's like I have a perfect, wonderful, fulfilled life. I don't identify with that victim portion of it. So is that, I guess I'm just confused, because people in this spiritual realm always look like you can be fully healed if you just figure yourself out. Right?
Yeah.
And
It was
I
something
don't think that's
Marie have talked about a lot, actually, with the Louise L. Hay as well, books, and kind of saying this happened and therefore now you're experiencing this illness. And I've recently been listening to Gabor Mate as well, The Body Says No, which is very much heavily, you know, around we cause our own illness, even though he says that's not what he's saying. It does sound very much like that. But like with the Eckhart bit here, I don't know what way I read it. I definitely didn't read it that he was saying the ego causes the illness. I read it more like he was saying if you are more inclined in your ego when you're ill, it just takes you longer to fight it. Or I know he says he'd get well and heal, and I know that's not possible for everyone as well. But that's the way I read it. I don't know if that helps at all.
I think that just the title of the chapter itself is called The Ego in Illness. So really what it's saying is our unconsciousness in illness, or our attachment to illness. Those are the three of the same words that he's pointing to. And I think that for myself, when he talks about healing, he's not talking about a scar disappearing. He's talking about the acceptance of the scar. That we are on a journey from beginning to end in our human life. And on that journey, there is only one path. There is not a different path. There's not a left path or a right path. There's only one path. And on that path, the illness comes in, and that can either bring us into darkness, or it could bring in the light. And that's what he's pointing to, I think, in this chapter when he talks about healing. He's not talking about it going away completely. He's talking about acceptance of where we are on our path and our journey.
That makes so much sense. Thank you for sharing that.
That's the way I've kind of looked at it always, but to see it, you know, I guess I was reading at night. I suppose that's why I kind of end of a long day and kind of went, so is he expecting you to recover it? You know, is there, because I haven't, you know, studied Eckhart a lot. So, you know, that's why I wanted to ask this for you that have, because it's such a different view, you know, just what he said here. I don't know what else he said about it. So.
You know, and that's just such a great question. And I'm honored to at least try to explain that a little bit. But that is just, and it's only just really from my understanding of just consciousness and unconsciousness and our journey, and whatever comes along on our journey is we either accept it or we don't. And through acceptance, that's who we are. That's just part of our journey. Yeah.
Definitely. Sharon, you want to say something? Mute you there. Can we get you off? Mute.
Thank
there
you.
We go. Yay.
Well, first I wanted to acknowledge something that Cher said, and I thought it's exactly the way that I was thinking when I read that. And so I changed it around in my mind to think, well, it must mean, and of course, who knows what it really means, but it must mean that our immune system can be depressed. And, you know, when that happens from stress or ego or whatever, then we could get sick. I just thought that. But I just want to ask you, and I won't ask you on here, I want to hear about you being a guru. A yogi. That's very interesting, but I won't take up our time with it.